A furious gorilla stumbled upon an injured woman in the jungle. She thought she was going to die. But what happened next was incredibly shocking and unexpected. As Pamela set out on a hike through the dense Virunga jungle, the camping guides had warned her of the dangers. After all, the Virunga mountains were treacherous and few dared to venture to this place. Few returned. Pamela now understood why. As she stared directly into the eyes of a massive, enraged gorilla charging towards her at alarming speed, her heart skipped a beat. She had heard horror stories about gorillas and how they could tear people apart if one ventured into their territory. Had she not been in such a vulnerable position, Pamela might have been impressed by the imposing figure of this gorilla, inching closer with every passing minute. But as it was, she was utterly terrified. Her main problem was her ankle. She had left her hotel that morning under the scorching sun, only to be caught in a downpour that turned the jungle into a slippery path of wet leaves. She had done her best to maintain balance, but inevitably she had slipped and landed directly on her left ankle. The pain surged through her ankle, rendering her helpless and unable to move. Now she sat on the ground in front of the gorilla, realizing she had no way to escape the towering beast glaring down at her. He seemed angry, or at least irritated by her presence. And the worst part was that he was slowly but surely getting closer. Pamela struggled to remain calm, recalling the warning she had received from the tour guide. In the morning, she had been told that running from a wild animal never ends well, and that in the event of an encounter, she should try to make herself as big and threatening as possible. But that was easier said than done. Her leg was twisted at an awkward angle, and with burning eyes, she was pretty sure she looked anything but big and threatening. Suddenly, she burst into hysterical laughter in the face of her desperate situation. But in that moment, the gorilla stopped advancing towards her. A noise had startled him, and he froze for a few seconds despite the paralyzing fear clouding her judgment. Pamela seized her chance and didn't wait for the gorilla to start moving again. Instead, she threw her hands up in the air and let out the loudest scream she could muster. She waved her arms around and yelled as long as her lungs allowed. She hoped not only to drive the gorilla away but also to attract the attention of other hikers. But she soon realized that her voice was carried away by the gusts of wind. Her desperate pleas seemed to merge with the noise of the storm, overshadowed by the raw power of nature. The leaves and trees also thwarted her cries, meaning that no one was able to or ever would hear her. But her peculiar display of strength seemed to have impressed the gorilla. He still hadn't moved from his spot. Pamela felt a tiny spark of hope take hold of her. Maybe he wouldn't continue or alert other hikers to her location after all. But if she kept screaming and moving her upper body, she could at least keep the gorilla at arm's length. So she screamed again and waved her arms in the air. But this time the beast didn't even flinch. Instead, he suddenly started moving again. The gorilla reached her in a matter of seconds, roaring, puffing out his chest, displaying his overwhelming dominance. Pamela needed a new strategy. Neither fighting nor fleeing was an option, so she lowered her head and looked away, hoping the gorilla would simply disappear. But he came even closer, sniffing at her body. Pamela could see the massive fangs surrounded by powerful muscles. If the gorilla were to attack, she would have no chance. Suddenly, the beast reached down, grabbed her, and lifted her off the ground. Pamela let out a scream, but the gorilla seemed unfazed. He carried her away, and it was unclear where or for what reason. All Pamela could do was cling to his powerful back, afraid of falling and injuring herself, or worse, further angering the gorilla. Finally, they reached a small cave, and the gorilla roughly set her down on the ground. Pamela struggled, trying to calm herself and remember everything she knew about gorillas. Were they carnivores or herbivores? Were they easily provoked or rather calm? In her confused and frightened state, Pamela couldn't think clearly. As the gorilla towered over her, its fur dripping onto its face, growing terribly angry, she realized she had no plan left. Pamela crawled into a corner, trying to make herself as small as possible. A part of her hoped that the gorilla would forget about her or grow bored and leave. As she crawled backward, her foot scraped against the ground. The gorilla, startled, swiftly turned around, let out a roar, and pounded its mighty chest with its fist. It seemed like something was shifting. Despite the terror of this event, Pamela couldn't overlook that the gorilla wasn't actively trying to harm or intimidate her. Instead, he merely observed her, keeping a respectful distance in the cave. It was only then that she realized he had brought her to a safe refuge. Here she was shielded from the rain and also safe from more dangerous predators. Shockingly, her situation had actually taken a turn for the better. Somehow she understood that the gorilla hadn't come to inflict suffering upon her. Perhaps she had misjudged the powerful creature. Pamela's fear gradually transformed into awe and gratitude. She realized that this magnificent creature was her savior. It was as if the gorilla comprehended her plight and knew she was injured. He slowly retreated to the cave's entrance, gazing out at the rain falling on the jungle. Suddenly, Pamela felt secure enough to dry her damp phone and call for help. Eventually, she reached a nearby station. They promised to send someone right away, but it would take a while for them to reach her location. Pamela agreed, knowing that the gorilla was holding her not out of malicious or deadly intent, but for a different reason. Hours passed, but the gorilla remained faithfully by her side. He observed and checked on Pamela from time to time. His penetrating gazes reassured her, assuring her that she wasn't alone. His unwavering loyalty touched her deeply, proving that the divide between humans and wildlife wasn't as vast as she might have thought. In a way, she was certain that the gorilla understood the pain she was going through. Finally, the rescue team arrived, guided by Pamela's distress call. As they tended to her injured ankle, the gorilla quietly retreated into the drenched wilderness, seamlessly blending with the dripping leaves and trees. The gorilla turned away without looking back, knowing he had saved her life. He was content knowing Pamela would make a full recovery and eventually return home to her normal American life. In the years that followed, she often thought back to this enchanting encounter with the gorilla in the African jungle. It reminded her that despite the significant differences between species and cultures, there was always something special that connected animals and humans. While she traveled the world to experience the wonders of Africa, it was this chance meeting with a gentle gorilla that truly opened her heart to the magic of this extraordinary place.